What is up, everybody, and welcome back to another Batman ranking, and this one is going to be ranking all of the Batman actors. I'm not going to be talking about Will Arnett or Kevin Conroy, although I do love a lot of the iterations that Kevin Conroy did, but that's specifically why. He's done so many that which one am I going to be talking about? So just the actual human performances are going to be here, of which we have 7. So I have just ranked all of the movies yesterday, all 14 theatrically released Batman movies, and I did that in collaboration with my buddy Brian Lomax, my local Batman fanatic. We're also going to be doing a collaboration on this video, as well as a couple more rankings. So please check out the video description below for his ranking of the Batman actors. Tomorrow we're talking about the Batmobiles, and then we're going to be talking about possibly the Batsuits, but for sure we're going to be ending with all of the live-action Batman villains. So if you're a fan of Batman, you've been on Batman fever ever since this new one came out this past weekend, definitely hit that subscribe button here and over on Brian Lomax Movie Talk so you don't miss any of that carnage coming up. Now, as far as how I rank these different Batman actors, a couple different criteria. One, of course, obviously is just the performance itself. The movie, whether or not I like the movie or not, certainly is going to play a big part in that, and how much that interpretation of Batman lines up with my preferred interpretation of Batman. We've got a lot of great iterations of Batman, a lot of actors that have done this role, a lot of justice, but just like with the movies, different eras, different versions of this character of Gotham, they all appeal to all of us differently. So very subjective list. Let me know your list down below in the comment section, and we will discuss it. Now, starting off with the worst of the worst, number 7, and this one's a little unfortunate because I don't think it's his fault, and that is George Clooney from Batman and Robin. Now, George Clooney is obviously an awesome actor. If he hasn't won an Oscar, he has certainly been nominated for Oscars. This is a guy that pretty much right after Batman and Robin took a big turn in his career and only did really good choices as far as movies that get a lot of acclaim, movies that get Oscar nominations, Oscar wins, things like that. Batman and Robin, it's a lot is just the movie that he's in. I honestly think that if you were given him a script on the quality of something like the Christopher Nolan movies or even this new Batman, he might have been one of the best, if not the best Batman. We have no idea. Unfortunately, he was in Batman and Robin. It was a live-action cartoon toy commercial. Even within that, though, I do think that he is not given the best performance that he could. I mean, there's other actors within Batman and Robin that certainly feel like they're trying more, that they know the movie that they're in. And George Clooney does this weird thing with his performance where I don't know if they just took that cut of every single time he did a scene, but every scene that he's in as Bruce Wayne, he's just like, he's got facial movements, he's shaking his head, and every single interaction, he's just like, it's like, what are you doing, dude? It's so weird. And one of the biggest things that I don't like about this, which I'm going to have to turn around and say something quite contradictory to that later on, is that his performance is just one note. Whether he's Bruce Wayne or Batman, it's the same character. His Batman has no intimidation factor. His Bruce Wayne has no real Bruce Wayne factor. So he's easily, for me, the worst performance that we have gotten as Batman. Number 6 is Adam West. Now, this is purely off of preference because if you just watched my ranking yesterday of the movies, I did not grow up as a kid watching the 1960s Batman show. I've never got into it. I've never liked it. I did watch the movie for that ranking just to finally just put it to rest. Let me check this thing out. Maybe I'll enjoy it. It's just not for me. I understand it's from a different era. People that grew up with it, people that were from that era, they love Adam West. They love that version of Batman. It's got its own little bit of nostalgia to it. It's very much a Batman that only belongs to that era. You could never do that type of Batman again. And that's quite literally why I just don't really get into Adam West. He did probably amazing for what that Batman required, but I'm somebody that likes the dark Batman, the brutal Batman, the damn near horror character Batman. You could not get farther away from that than the Adam West version of the character. Number 5 is going to be Val Kilmer. Now, again, much like with George Clooney, I think a lot of what holds his performance back is the type of movie that he's in. Batman Forever is a much better movie than Batman and Robin, but his version, I think that he does pretty damn good as Bruce Wayne. Not so good as Batman. A lot of it because of the script. When he's forced to do little bat puns and things like that, or little jokes for the kiddies, I'll get drive-through, things like that, you're not going to really come across as the best Batman, the most intimidating Batman, or even a serviceable Batman. When he's Bruce Wayne, I think he does pretty good. He does good as kind of the rich playboy. He does good with his interaction with Chase Meridian. He does good with his interaction with Alfred and Dick Grayson. So I think that his performance, a lot of it was left on the cutting room floor. There was a lot more of this movie, the Schumacher cut, as people are calling it now, that was going to dive more into this character and more into his psyche, and we probably would have had a much better reception of his version of Batman if we ever do get to see that. But as is right now, he's fine. Certainly doesn't stand out. Now these top 4, these are all like best of the best. These are the Batman that defined a generation for people, and so you're gonna get a lot of passionate people for all 4 of these answers. Number 4 for me is Michael Keaton. Now I love Michael Keaton as an actor, especially his comedy stuff. I really do like his version of Batman and Bruce Wayne. I think there's a really subtle edge to his Batman. There's a subtle brokenness to it that I really like, and I think it's very intentional with the way that he plays the character, and this quite literally kind of changed the trajectory of his career where he was able to do more dramatic stuff, and certainly nowadays, now that he's kind of come back into the limelight, that's pretty much all he does is A-list Oscar stuff. So Batman quite literally was that pivot point for his career. And it's mostly just because the Tim Burton movies I've just never been the biggest fan of. They're okay. I like Batman Returns much more on this most recent rewatch than I ever have. So there's aspects to those 2 movies that I will always like and appreciate, but they just weren't the era of Batman that I ever really gravitated to, especially as a kid. Just the Tim Burton weirdness has never worked for me. I'm not a big fan of Tim Burton. So unfortunately, that's a lot of what holds him back in this ranking. But as a Batman performance, he does damn good, and I can't wait to see how he expands on that decades later in the Flash movie. Number 3 might surprise some people as of recent comments that I have made regarding this movie, but number 3 for me is going to be Robert Pattinson. Now, this is a big placeholder, because his version of Batman is in a very early stage here, and the Bruce Wayne side of him is all but dead. I'm not going to talk too specifically, because there's not going to be any spoilers here, but his version of the character, 2 years into his little Batman project, Bruce Wayne is like this dead part of his personality. He's just Batman, morning, noon, and night. Whether or not he's wearing the cowl or not, he is in Batman mode. And part of his character journey in this movie is regaining that consciousness that he needs to be both, that the city deserves more, that he deserves more, that Wayne Enterprises deserves more. And so inevitably in the second film, we're going to see more of your traditional Bruce Wayne and Batman kind of dichotomy there. We don't get that in this first film. Now, what we do get, I fucking love. I love this interpretation of Batman. I love this approach to the character. I love this kind of a new version of his origin arc. I love the brutality, the bat suit, everything that goes along with this. And of course, I'm not going to spoil my ranking, but I fucking adore this movie. I just want to see the other side of his character. So, pending the sequel, how we get to see his character then, he might go up, he might go down. Like I said, these top 4 are all like best of the best. So even if I bump Michael Keaton above him, I'm still giving a huge compliment to Robert Pattinson. But I love this version of the character so much, but we just haven't seen enough of him for me to say that he's my number 1 yet. Number 2 is Christian Bale. Now, the Dark Knight trilogy is damn near a masterpiece trilogy. Many would say it is a masterpiece. These are some of the best movies of all time, certainly some of the best comic book films of all time, and without a doubt, some of the best Batman films of all time. I prefer Batman Begins. That is the one that I like the most, but Dark Knight I absolutely love. Dark Knight Rises I absolutely love. I just have certain little nitpicks with those movies that hold them back a little bit, and I appreciate that Batman Begins is more of a Batman story where the other two get taken over by the villain a little bit more. But Christian Bale's version of the character was a total reinvention. You know, it took all of these comic book accuracies with the no-kill rule, dove a lot more into the origins and the psychology of the character. We got to see 3 films with one actor, first time we've ever seen that, and so you get very much this huge through line of his character arc all the way through to the end, and his brutality is there, not quite as much as the 2 that came after him, but it's there. He's a very physical Batman. I love his Bruce Wayne. I think that he's probably the best Bruce Wayne that we have ever had for sure. If I'm looking at just that, if I was just ranking the Bruce Wayne side of these characters, he's an easy number 1. His Batman, the main thing that holds it back for me is I don't like the voice that he does. It grates on me a little bit. I think it was a little bit silly. It seemed fine when I first watched these movies, over time, it's a weird thing that stands out to me. But everything else is working for him. The movies are great, performance is great, the interpretation of the character is great. There's just one Batman that I like a little bit more. And that Batman for me, number one, is Ben Affleck. Now, I will admit, part of this is just my lifelong, well, maybe lifelong, we'll see, never say never, but potentially my lifelong heartbreak that we never got to see the full character arc with this version of Batman. But this was a Batman that was insane. This was a Batman that was brutal. This was a Batman that was physically more imposing than any two other iterations put together. I mean, the best fight scenes that we have ever gotten on screen with Batman were Ben Affleck. I love the physical performance. I love his version of Bruce Wayne and Batman, because even though we're much more on the opposite end, kind of similar to Robert Pattinson, where he started to lose his humanity at the tail end of his career instead of the beginning, but he still very much understands that difference between Bruce Wayne and Batman, and he plays it like Batman is the actual person and Bruce Wayne is the persona that he has to put on. And that is a fundamental thing about Batman. Bruce Wayne is not this guy. Bruce Wayne is the mask. Batman is the guy. And Ben Affleck captured that better than anybody up to that point, in my opinion. I loved how much they pushed his Batman. Like, I really don't give a shit if he kills people. Michael Keaton killed people. People still love him. So that whole argument annoys the fuck out of me. I like the fact that we got this Batman that was broken, that was pushed to an edge, that had been through this career, that had been through the ringer, that had defeated the Joker and all these people umpteenth amount of times, that lost Robin, that lost all these things, and was just done. Was just done trying to be the hero, and was just like, okay, I'm just gonna fuck these criminals up. I'm gonna brand them, they're gonna get murdered and prison. Like, I just loved that dark edge to it. I understand it's controversial. I understand that there's a lot of people that passionately do not like that version of the character. I'm not one of them. My passion swings the other way. I thought he was one of the best interpretations of Batman, and I want to see how much of him we're going to be in The Flash. I'm trying to keep my expectations tempered, but in all likeliness, that's the last we're ever going to see this guy. And man, for as much as I love the Batman that just came out, I'm always going to be heartbroken that we never got to see Ben Affleck's Batman movie, because I adore his version of the character. So what do you guys think? How do you rank the Batman actors? Let me know your list down below. Be sure to check the video description while you're down there and click on the link to Brian Lomax's video. See how he ranks the different Batman. He is going to come at it from a very different perspective, so you are inevitably going to get a different list from him and different insight into why he chose those different versions of the character. So please check that out. Hit the subscribe button over there so you don't miss our following rankings that are coming up. Please like and share this video so that this one succeeds just as much as you guys were awesome and did for my movie rankings so far. Thank you for watching as always, and remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean that you have to be.